wet down our bat so our first row will stick. It's a good idea to think about the width of your bat and work all the way up to the edge. That gives you a nice guideline. So if you want a pot that's not as wide, use a smaller bat. So just to move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing, because I'm not using water, I really don't need a splash pan. I'm just gonna bring it up to the edge and go back and forth until it gets resist, and that's going to keep it stuck to the surface. So my slab roller is not very long, and so you're gonna have to put two pieces together. So what I do is I just come over and I'll take my knife and just cut like so. And then I'll just do a swipe of water and just put those two together, almost like a butt joint, and move until there's resist, and that's good enough. Okay, and then go all the way over. Now with traditional coiling, sometimes the coil will move. This one's not moving because I'm not squeezing it as I'm putting it on. And just work that together. Okay. All right. It's a good idea to have a bucket with a lid that you put your extra in. Now this is still a long piece and I may use it, so I'm going to put it aside. So go around this and make sure that it's on there before you put your next row. If you want, you can scrape those seams. Okay. Now, the next coil is going to be placed on the inside. So what I'm going to do is hold it up, and I'm going to go about this far down. It's going to meet and get pushed in. Okay, so I'm going to hold it up and pinch. So now we're ready to add another coil. I may go ahead and just cut that. Got a little bit thin on the end from picking it up, so that way I get a thicker . Go back and forth until there's resist. Marry those together. Your coil can just curl into the middle of your bat and hang out. It doesn't have to be held up above your head or anything like that. Now, if you get to a point where you didn't have enough, don't worry. This is a pretty forgiving method. you just take some clay and put it in here. Okay, now we're ready for our next row. I'm just gonna go ahead and go around once and make sure that this area is thinned out a little bit. Okay, just pinching. Okay. All right, now let's do another row. You can do a lot of rows with this technique. The advantage with this versus wheel throwing your form is you have a lot of control over the directional changes, and you can get a more extreme foot and shoulder versus sometimes on the wheel, that directional change, the clay won't support it. Squish it. Hit the resist. So we're working upside down. We are ascending toward the foot. So this will allow us to have a tapered in foot. And again, it's okay. Don't try to pinch it together. Just get some extra clay and put it in there. It's okay. Over time, you may be able to understand the pinching motion you're doing and enough to just be able to calculate better and not cut before it's going to attach. Sometimes you'll get it perfect, but if not, don't worry. Like I said, just put a piece of clay there. Okay, so I'm just going to go over this pinch one more time. What I like about this technique is you can work on multiple forms at one time. So you'll go so high and then you'll stop and you'll start another one. And by the time you're finished with maybe your third or fourth one, you can come back to the beginning and it's rested enough that it's ready to be worked on again. So you can work on 4 or 5 forms simultaneously and in a couple of days have several very large pots. And if you are a decorator, it's a nice big canvas to work on. I do like working on my wheel versus using a banding wheel. I think it allows me to have good posture, sit up straight as you're working, and you can see the inside and the outside really well as you're working. It's nice having a wheel that turns, that you can move without having the pedal on. But if you have to have the pedal on, that's fine. Just go very slow. So I'm going to go ahead and get this piece attached. If you are rolling your own slabs at home, you'll want to have some spacer bars to make sure that you're getting the proper thickness. You really want to make your slab as thick as a 1/4 inch more than you want the thickness of the wall when you're done, because this is still going to expand. So because I did 1/2 inch, I'm expecting that my wall will end up being around 1/4 after it's paddled and shaved a little bit. Working thicker will help the pot, believe it or not, stand up better too. At least that's what I've found thus far. Okay. I'm going to do one more coil and then we'll let this one rest, and I'll move on to the next one and show you the next part of the process. So you can move in different directions too. You don't always have to move one way. Don't worry at this point if your bottom is undulating. It's okay, because we're going to trim that straight. This process can also be combined with the wheel process. You may want to throw your base and then coil off the top of it. That's an option. Okay, so you will be tempted to paddle this, but it's not time for paddling. What we can do is go ahead and smooth our coils. And I have counter pressure on the inside. My fingers are just going around. I'm just sealing these coils together. This will help when you're paddling and it's starting to grow outward from those seams opening up, because you're almost stealing clay from one coil and moving it into the other. I guess smearing it, for lack of a better word.